Thanks, Bern. And thanks to the band. I'm telling you, these guys, comes from their heart. We were praying right before we came out here. And it's our desire as a ministry team to do everything we can to create some sacred space for us to hear from God. Because the world that we live in, the world that you live in most of the week, is not a faith-friendly place. Would you agree with that? I mean, you're behind enemy lines, right? I mean, you're getting bombarded with temptation every hour of every day of every week. And so when you come in here, our heart is to create a circle of light where we can reconnect with what life is really all about, where we can remind each other of what really matters. Yes, grades are important, and yes, friendships are important, and yes, jobs and money and career and future and family, that's all important, but those are all lesser things. You understand what I'm saying? And if you're like me, we need to be reminded that those are lesser things and not allow ourselves to be consumed by some lesser thing. So that's our desire for Thursday nights, for Paradigm. And that's our heart and our desire and our prayer is to create this circle of light where all of us can hear from God, can connect with God, can get our hearts right. You know, because as you live out in the world, sometimes we lose our way, right? Would you agree with that? That it's easy to lose our way? You kind of get an inch off course. You kind of get hit hard one week. You get hit hard one day with something, a tragedy, whatever it might be. You need to come and be restored. You need to come and be reminded of what life is really all about. So I hope you'll come on Thursdays and bring somebody with you, because that's our heart. It's for you not to connect with the church so much as to connect with Christ. To not connect with a band so much as you connect with the Holy Spirit. For you not to connect with a preacher or communicator so much as you connect with the living Word of God. So tonight's going to be a little bit different. Is that okay with y'all? Mix it up a little bit. The theme is mission. Last week was community. And by the way, if you miss a Thursday, we put these things on the Paradigm Bible Study podcast on iTunes. You want to go subscribe. You can kind of keep up even when you're not able to be here on a Thursday. You can kind of keep up with what the conversation that we're having together week to week. Last week was community and just the power of community. We're created for community. And I really challenged you to not passively wait on it, but to intentionally seek out the kind of community that's going to help you become who you're created to be. Community is a powerful influence and it could go either way, right? So don't just go with the flow. Place your life around people and in places that are going to encourage you spiritually, they're going to sharpen you, they're going to help you become who you're created to be. Tonight's all about mission. I intentionally did community first because you cannot have biblical mission apart from biblical community. If you jump ship and you try to go change the campus, change the world, and you try to go Chuck Norris on the darkness, it's not going to happen. You're going to be defeated, right? You're going to get discouraged. You're going to have a bad day, a bad week, and you're going to need somebody around you that you can lock shields with. You're going to need some people in the foxhole. When the battle is raging around you, like when you run out of ammo, you need somebody to cover you while you're reloading, okay? And if you don't have cover fire, you're going to get hit, you're going to get wounded, and you're not going to have anybody to have your back. So you got to have that community aspect first, because that's why church is so critical. You don't just wait for it to happen. I'm telling you, the culture is moving in the wrong direction. If you go with the flow, you're going to drift away from God, to be honest with you. And so make it a priority to connect with biblical community. And I invited you to join a community group last week, and I invite you again this week to join a community group. We're trying to provide opportunities for you to experience that biblical community where you can be encouraged. And tonight's all about mission, right? Say this with me. Every Christian is a missionary. Now, I don't mean that to disrespect the term missionary, but when I think of the word missionary, oftentimes we think of people that go to these other cultures, these other countries, we cross oceans, and I've done that, right? And we'll do that again. Some of us will do that together. We'll strap into an airplane and cross an ocean together, and we'll engage some unreached people group. And those are awesome experiences, but every Christian is a missionary. Have you ever thought about this? How many of you guys have been on a mission trip before? Mission trip people in the house. Yeah, when you go on a mission trip, you change how you think. When you go on a mission trip, you're always looking for opportunities. You're always expecting God to do something around you. So if you're going on this spring break mission trip with us to South Padre over spring break, Beach Reach, and you're expecting God to do something. God's gonna do something. It's a mission trip. And everything becomes significant when you're on a mission trip. For instance, you go to Cracker Barrel, you go to Cane's. That's more relevant to my crowd tonight, although I like me some Cracker Barrel, man. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the chicken and dumplings, by their delicious corn muffins. Where was I? Man does not live on cornbread alone. Let's get back to the bread of life. Okay, seriously, where was I? When we go to Cane's on a mission trip, you're looking for people around you. Hey, I wonder if God brought them here. I wonder if this is a divine appointment. You know, your waitress, well, not that Cane's has waitresses. Let's go back to Cracker Barrel. Your waitress at Cracker Barrel, and like you guys are all together saying, maybe we should ask her if we can pray for her. You know, like before we bless the food, is there anything we could pray for you about? But why is it that we have that mindset when we go to another zip code? Why can't we have that mindset in our own zip code, in our own backyard, where you're walking across campus and you're thinking, maybe, I wonder what God's gonna do today. I wonder what he's up to around my life. When you're in a certain class, in a certain time of a certain day of the week, and you're thinking, God put me here. There's people around me. I wonder what God's going to do. Well, you know, when you're in the gym working out, if you do that kind of thing, right? And you're breaking a sweat, or you're whatever it might be on an intramural team, or I wonder what God's doing. I wonder what he's up to. I wonder what people he's going to place in my life. I wonder what divine appointments are going to occur in my life today. And that creates some excitement about things that are ordinarily pretty ordinary, right? In Acts chapter 1, verse 8, it's another form of the Great Commission. Jesus is about to ascend into heaven, his final words on the planet physically, and this is important stuff. He's saying, this is it. 3 years, tons of sermons, lots of Bible studies, lots of prayer times, lots of devotions. This is it, okay? I want these words ringing in your heart as I leave you physically. And he says this, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. This is another form of what we call the Great Commission. And he's speaking not to an elite class of Christian. He's not speaking to the Delta Force, like the Navy SEAL followers of Jesus. He's speaking to all of us. That's why I say every Christian is a missionary. Every Christian is sent somewhere. Now, the majority of us aren't going to be sent to another country to engage an unreached people group. The majority of us are sent into the ordinary as representatives of God, of Jesus. But we have to have that same mindset, right? We got to have the same attitude to be on mission all the time. So I say on mission, you say all the time. On mission, all the time. Who knows when God's going to put somebody in your path that needs to know they matter, right? And there's no rabbi or priest or minister around in that moment, but you're there. And they cross your path. And they need to know they matter to God. How are they going to know they matter to God? Because he lets them know that through us. And we pay attention to the people that he places around us. You see, evangelism has become a bad word in the church. It makes us nervous. It makes us squirmy. It makes us guilty. I call it the E-bomb, right? You have all the other bombs. This is the E-bomb. It's like the bad word. Don't drop the E-bomb, man. They're not going to come back. It's not a bad word. See, I mean, we've made it into something that I don't think Jesus ever intended it to be. Like this aggressive, confrontational, talking to a complete stranger about intimate and personal issues. I don't think that's what evangelism was ever intended to be. And we've made it more about how many people, how many notches on our religion belt, on our evangel belt, than about people. I mean, what if God brought you here to Lubbock so that he can connect your life with one other person, and in the 2 or 3 or 4 years that you're here, he is able, by the grace of God, to flow through our dysfunction, our significant brokenness, and impact the life of one person for eternity. That's huge. Rather than say, that's lame. One? Seriously? Oh, that's all, 4 years and one person? I'm telling you, the eternal weight, the eternal value of one soul in the eyes of God. But oftentimes we don't even see the people that are around us. And so to be on mission, thank you. To be on mission all the time. You never can tell what God's going to do. You never can, who's going to be around the next corner, right? What's going to happen? To be always prepared to give an answer when people ask the question. And it's not about meeting new people that need to know about Jesus, right? It's not about going into the free speech area and engaging total strangers with the gospel. I've done that before when I was a student, and I didn't find it to be incredibly effective when it comes to people getting it, right? As a matter of fact, last week I was on campus just walking around, kind of prayer walking around the campus, and there was some Mormons out in the free speech area. Did you guys see them out there last week? And they were ambushing people as they went by. And I was watching them from a distance, and it wasn't ineffective, but we think it's going to be different when we do it. Right? Like when the Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door, it kind of gets on my nerves, right? I'm like, spending time with my kids, about to have some food, watching a movie, whatever, right? It's not really, I'm not overjoyed, right? I'm so glad you stopped by. Awesome, that made my week. I love you guys. Come on in for some lemonade. Sit on my couch, eat my food. No, but we think it's going to be different when we do it, and it's not, right? You're deceiving yourself if you think that some cold turkey door knock is going to be different because you're doing it than when somebody does it to you, then we're deceived, right? It's not about meeting new people in order to share Christ. Here it is. It's about being intentional with the people that we already know. Come on, we got 30-something thousand people at Texas Tech. 3 blocks away, you have dormitories full of students. You have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people around us all the time. They're in your dormitory. They're in your apartment. You're working out beside them. You're playing ball with them. You are in your degree program with them. You're in a study group with them. So it's not, I'm going to reach the campus for Christ. It's breaking it up into bite-sized portions and asking this question: who is the one person that God wants me to connect with on a deeper level? Where you begin to develop and deepen significant relationships with a smaller number of people, and the byproduct of that is the unavoidable influence of your consuming passion for Christ. You get it? When I was where you're at, I didn't get it. I was out in the middle of campus slinging tracts, right? It was like a drive-by, whatever. So somebody's bebopping along. Back in the day, it was a Walkman, right? They're jamming out to Vanilla Ice or whatever it was back in the day. And then I'll jump out. Hey, let me tell you about Jesus, And I was so enthusiastic. I was a new Christian. God found me in a ditch. I was so thrilled to be saved. I just wanted everybody to know it. And so you could, if you wanted to, hey, where's John at? You just followed the trail of tracks, right? It was a track trail, Oh, he went to the bathroom, left a track on the toilet, right? Just tracks everywhere, right? And I just didn't find that to be the most effective way. Listen, if that's you, I'm not, well, I guess I kind of am. My bad, but I'm telling you, if I had have been more intentional in investing my life in just a handful of people that were spiritually disconnected, the fruit of that would have been greater than 1,000 tracts. You understand what I'm saying? The gospel is unavoidably relational. It's like electricity that flows from one person to the next. And so it's not a question of meeting somebody that needs to know about Jesus. It's about opening your eyes and seeing who God has already placed in your circle of influence, in your life. They're all around us every day. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, Paul kind of gives us a job description here. He says, "We are therefore Christ's ambassadors," listen to this, "as though God were making his appeal through us, we implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God." So we're ambassadors, right? And you're sent by God into all these different parts of our community, into all these different parts of our campus. You're sent there as a missionary. In the same way that some people feel called to China as a missionary and they learn the Chinese language, they learn Mandarin, or what's the other one? Mandarin or, thank you, Cantonese. They learn one of those languages. And come on, Devin, you could help me out there, man. He's been to China. And you learn a language. You kind of learn their food, right? Their culture, their habits, so that you can incarnationally present the gospel. That's kind of a big word, isn't it? Right? What does incarnation mean? It means that Jesus came as a human to reach humans, that Jesus came in a culture, in a time, and he spoke the language of the people. He didn't speak the tongues of angels. And they were like, what's the dude saying? He's not from here, right? It's like when I lived in Canada for 6 years as a missionary, they immediately could tell that I wasn't from there, right? Because of how I talk. But when you're going into some place, on the campus, it might be a dormitory, degree program, you're sent, right? And you live as a sent person. It gives you purpose. And you contextualize the gospel for that people group. Hudson Taylor was a guy that went to China back in the 1800s. And this was back in the day, man. Like when you went to China, you stayed in China. Like it wasn't like Christmas in China, see you in January. The dude sold everything that he had. Kissed his mama goodbye, packed a PBJ and a Bible, got on a ship, and moved to China. I mean, you wasn't going to fly back home, right? And he did something very radical for missionaries. See, up till that point, it was, let me teach you English so I can tell you about Jesus. That's how missions was, that's how they operated. Stop speaking Chinese, let me teach you English so I can tell you about Jesus. It's like, what? Why don't you learn Chinese so you can tell them about Jesus in the language that they know? And so Hudson Taylor went and he just revolutionized missions. Because before you had people from England, and they would show up in their suits and they'd drink their tea and they'd speak their English, and the Chinese people didn't understand who they were. They were obviously different. They were obviously foreigners. But here's Hudson Taylor moved to China, and all of a sudden, he grew out his hair like a Chinese man in a pigtail. He dressed like Chinese people. He learned the language, and he told them about Jesus in their heart language, and it made all the difference. And that'll make all the difference. You know, it's not about getting our campus to come into this chapel. It's not about Texas Tech or Lubbock Christian or Wayland or it's not about them coming here into the stained glass and learning Christianese so they can kind of become one of us, right? It's not about them coming to us, and it's not about them putting themselves in an uncomfortable position. I know before I was a Christian, I was uncomfortable in chapels and sanctuaries and around religious professionals. Right? I didn't know kind of how we operated. I didn't know the routine, right? I didn't know the songs. And even if I did, I couldn't authentically sing them. I didn't know Christ. So what I needed not somebody to invite me into their world. I didn't need somebody to say, let me teach you Christianese so I can tell you about Christ. Come to the church and let me kind of get you all religioned up. I needed somebody that was on my football team in South Arkansas. I needed them to think like a missionary, to go from the chapel into the world as a sent person. I needed somebody on my football team to be on mission in the locker room. You see what I'm saying here? It's a whole different philosophy. And I think it determines how effective we will be as ambassadors, as missionaries. The value of one soul, one person. Jesus said in Luke chapter 15, there was a series of parables there in Luke chapter 15, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. It really kind of shook me up as a new Christian when I read Luke 15, the first part of it there. Because Jesus was a friend of sinners, right? He wasn't camped out in the synagogue saying, y'all know where I'm at. First Baptists have been here 120 years. You know, if they want a dose of God, they know where the doctor's office is at. That's not how he operated, right? He was more like a battlefield medic, man. He wasn't camped out in an ivory tower. Come get the medicine if you're sick, you know? He was more like a battlefield medic out in the midst of people that were wounded, and he was handing out the medicine on the battlefield, man. Same thing he's called us to do as his representatives. But he says there in Luke chapter 15, he says, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents. So heaven throws a party when one person gets their life connected to Christ. One person becomes a Christian. Heaven is rejoicing. You know, one son returns home. One lady finds one coin. One shepherd goes after one sheep, and there's rejoicing. So I want to get our minds right about what biblical New Testament outreach and mission really looks like, regardless of the church that you came from and what it might have looked like. That awkward time on Tuesday nights that we went out into the community and we had to fire ourselves up. Kind of like what we used to do in the locker room before football games. It's like you got like the Delta Force on Tuesday night at the church that's going out into visitation, or they're going to knock on doors or whatever. And we just do this thing, man. You know, we got to get all fired up. And if we would just live like missionaries throughout the week, I think we'd see much more fruit from our efforts. So I know it's one thing for me to say this, right? For like Southern Baptist preacher guy, sure, man, yeah, go for it. Good for you. Well done, you know? But what about the real world? What about students here? It's one thing about people in other places. So I wanted to spend the rest of the time hearing from students that are sitting beside you. These are students that are walking the hallways with you. They're sitting in the same classrooms. They're experiencing the same pressures, same temptations, same failures and regrets. Not the same, but we all have them. And yet in the middle of that, they've made themselves available to God. And God is using them. As a freshman, as a sophomore, as a senior, God is using them the same way He can use you. So we're going to start with Jerusalem, right? And you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, not actually Jerusalem, right? Some of you are like, dude, that's a long ways from Jerusalem. Jerusalem is our local area, right? Jerusalem is Lubbock. Jerusalem is your campus. Jerusalem is your circle of influence. And then Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. So where's Jack at? Come on up, bro. Got a chance to hang out with Jack last week, and we just really connected with his heart, with his story. So I wanted you to hear from him about a student that's making a difference right here where we live, right? This is not some slide that we're showing of some person, somebody else in some other country or some other state. These are people right here. And in some ways, it kind of takes away our excuses, right? There you go. Jack, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about where you come from and how you got to be where you're at.
Well, my name's Jack Castles, and I'm the chaplain of Phi Delta Theta here. I'm from Roswell, New Mexico, just down the road, I guess, a little ways. And so the story of how I became chaplain, I guess?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I went through and signed up for Rush right before I graduated because my older sister was a tried out here. Kind of talked it up, and I saw how her faith changed from when she went from being sheltered by our parents to, having to technically, I guess, fight, just like John was talking about in the battlefields with Tried-Out. And so I got to talk to her about it, and I didn't really know. I was still in high school under my parents' wing, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. Then I went to Foundation, and some things kind of happened there, and God really opened my eyes and God asked me a question of if I was going to be the same person I was in high school, that, I lived under my parents' name and people thought I was a Christian, and other parents would have said I was, but I really wasn't living like it. And then, or was I going to be real? Was I going to be Jack Castles 24/7 around everybody? So decided to rush, and it was kind of like, I thought it was kind of like a Daniel in the Lion's Den type thing. I'm going to go in there, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to party that same way. And I still really didn't know what I was getting into because I still hadn't really been to a college thing. So I got up here, and Rush Week happened, and then my eyes were opened, I guess, and saw what it was about. And just kind of from that point even, I went through, and I was able, and God kept me strong, and was able to stay away from alcohol and the whole party scene, really. I would go, but wouldn't partake, and trying to be a light. But the funny thing was I was afraid. I was afraid to say why I wasn't drinking, why I wasn't partying the same way everybody was. And so I was there, and I just kind of looked like an outcast because I was just sitting there and didn't look like I was having any fun. So then later on in my freshman year, as another God hit me in the face, and it was kind of a, are you going to be the secret Christian and do everything that you've learned in the Bible, or are you going to share me with your brothers? Are you going to share me with the people, that I spend these evenings with? So then a couple weeks after that, the chaplain the previous year kind of nominated me and asked me to be the chaplain, and I guess the rest is history. and I've been chaplain, I guess, since the beginning of my sophomore year, and I'm in the middle of my junior year now.
So tell me a little bit about, I know it hasn't been easy, right? So just the difficulty of being a missionary, living on mission in that environment, where it's not an incredibly faith-friendly place.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things to where I didn't really know until I got up to school, of course, but when you get to college, you're either going one way or the other. You're not under your parents' roof for the most part anymore, so you're either going to get up here and exploit all the new freedom and use everything, I guess, that we have to, see what the college life is about, or you're going to rely on God and you're going to let Him lead you through school and be there and make these decisions that the Bible's taught us, that our parents tried to instill in us. So it was kind of that battle of the sense of, every day, every second, and I still struggle with it. But how am I going to be? Am I going to be, Jack Castle's the one that's boldly talking about Jesus? I'm going to be there, preaching His name and giving Him the credit, or am I going to be kind of in the background and just getting by and just kind of, trying to fit in? Because you can't, the Bible says that if we follow Jesus, the world's going to hate us because it hated Him first. And I don't include y'all in the world, because y'all are my brothers and sisters here. But, once you go out there and you get into the parties or whatever, you see what that really means. You see when people are trying to give you drinks, and you see when people are trying to have you do X, Y, and Z, that they really don't like you very much, when you're not doing what they're doing one way or the other. I'm not sure why, but it's just one of those things that I had there that God taught me through these experiences of, was I more worried about being accepted by the people here and the people that I was in a fraternity with and the people that I spent a lot of my time with, or was I going to be worried about serving Him and, being defined by His name and what He was having me do here?
Oh, that's good. And just to be encouraged by, both of us, me and Jack and all of us, we're broken, we struggle, but yet in the midst of that, God still somehow uses us the same way He can use you. So what would you say to somebody, Jack, like kind of a concluding word of, there's a student out here saying, man, I'd kind of like to do that, I want to make a difference too. Having been there, done that, currently doing it, what would be kind of a concluding challenge to them?
I guess a concluding challenge. Well, I guess all last week with being about community, and that's a huge part. There's been people, and as I've been in the fraternity, I've got to see, and God's changed these guys' lives, and He's showed them how beautiful He truly is once they really meet Him. So even then, for them, that's one of the big things I always try to tell them is, you got to surround yourself with people that are going to build you up and push you to the right direction and the right, the right way, and that they're going to be, rather than trying to get you to do something that y'all go to a Bible study together and learn, and then they're trying to get you to do the opposite of that, that you surround yourself with real, legitimate Jesus followers, people that are always trying to do, I guess, the things that God's taught them, and rather than, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be this Bible study person, then go and do that. But it's just about surrounding yourselves with a strong body of believers and people that are going to lift you up, and we really are. We really all do fall short, and we all really are striving. But that's the beauty of it, is that when one of us falls, there's another one to pick them up, and that they're always going to be there for you, and they're not going to kind of lay down with you. You need to try to find a good community that's going to always pick you up, I guess, when you fall, or do that for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. And if you are in a fraternity or sorority here, and you're interested in maybe connecting, getting something started, maybe even becoming a chaplain, I think that's a great thing, man. And I'm a resource and encourager. You need somebody like missionaries that go to China, they need support, man. Missionaries that go to campus, you need support too, right? And Jack's putting together this ministry called The Bridge. You want to share just a minute about kind of what?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Well, it's really kind of centered on everything that God's taught me through being the chaplain. It's centered on, it's open for everybody. It's from, college student wise, it's from all fraternities to all sororities, Greek and Christian fraternities and sororities, and then just for all tech kids individually, because there's something cool about, hearing stories that happens in these other fraternity or sorority houses, or just other classrooms, really. And we're all just going to come together, and it's going to be a short church service, you would think. I guess you'd show up, and you get to see everybody, guys and girls. You can come with your boyfriend or girlfriend if you want, and we'll all meet in one place, and then, kind of really quick music, really quick. Someone talks for 10 minutes or so, and then you break up into these small groups, and that's where you build these relationships, these people that, like me being a Phi Delta, or my other Phi Delta brothers back there, and connecting with Delts or Fijis, and then the Pi Phis, and connecting with RSC and Phi Lam, or everything, or girls that are just doing the daily life here at Tech, and it's just cool to be able to be centered around all college kids, and us just coming together and talking about our struggles and our battles, and being there for one another yet again, because these are the same people that you'll have classes with. These might be the same people you've been, saying bad things about in class before you get to really know them. But we're there, and we're there for each other, and we see each other all the time. I mean, one of the perks of being in a Greek fraternity or sorority is that it shrinks the campus. Or even Bucks or Phi Lam or RSC or MOG, it shrinks the campus. So you go to class and you see all these different people that you know. And what the bridge is that ability to shrink it even more and connect from all different locations of all different parts of Tech. And it's actually, it's starting this next week, Tuesday night, and it's going to be here until the Phi Delta Lodge is done being constructed on. But it'll be here next Tuesday night at 7. There's a Facebook page, check us out. And it's just really connecting, and it's just really about loving and being there and being real with one another. Because for my first semester, I was a Christian, but I was hiding who I truly was to all these guys. I'd be a secret Christian Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday I'd be loud and proud of Jesus' name everywhere, And it's just about being able to help each other be loud and proud all the time, rather than secretive.
Good job. Well, thanks, Jack. I'm proud of this guy. Proud of you, man. You're doing good. And that Tuesday deal, if you want any more information, you can talk to Jack after things end up tonight. But you wear different letters maybe on the outside, but as Christians, you're on the same team. We're following the same God, so you can be joined together in that. All right, Kelly, come on up here, Kelly, and tell us a little bit about how you've been able to step out of your comfort zone locally and connect with a little girl.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a freshman, so I started last semester. And I started coming to this church at the first Paradigm, and I heard John talking about this thing called Kids Hope. And I'm an education major, so of course anything with kids, I'm like, oh yes, I want to. So I really felt that God was telling me to try this thing out and see if it's possible, if I can do it. And it worked out with everything, my schedule and all that. And so I've been able to mentor this little girl starting last semester, and it continued on to this semester. And her name's Kiana, and she's the sweetest little thing. The second day I went to go see her, because I go see her every Wednesday. So the second day I went to go see her, she ran up to me and she was like, oh my gosh, you took the longest time to get here. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'll try and get here sooner next week. And she was like, okay, because that was the longest time ever. And she's just so sweet. And I can tell that she knows that like God is calling me to be with her, and that she knows that there's something more, even though she's just a little first grader. Because she'll I wear this necklace that's a cross with a little heart in it, and she tells me all the time, she's like, I really like your necklace. I'm like, oh, thank you. And we can't really initiate talking about church with them because it's like in public school, and that's not really allowed. But I'll be like, oh, thank you. And she's like, I go to church. And I'm like, that's awesome. I do too. And, we can't go very much in depth, but I can tell that she just knows that, our relationship is God is with us in our relationship. I don't know. It's really cool, and it's been a great way to start my freshman year, and hopefully I'll be able to do this every year of college. But
Yeah, Kelly and I, we mentor at the same time, and I have my little guy, Isaac, and she's there. And just to these kids, Jesus said, let the little kids come to me. And there's a reason why our church is partnering with Dupree's, because that's an area of our community that has some struggles, right? And so the kids oftentimes are the ones that receive the brunt of it, And so just for an hour a week, man, trying to fill these kids, kind of love tank up, just really loving on them, encouraging them. It might be the only time in their week, right, where they get, adult attention, like blessing, encouragement. I'm proud of you. Man, you're good at this. Because we also help them academically,
Yeah.
right? Tutor them a little bit.
yeah,
so.
work with them on their homework.
Play some
Their
Connect
teachers
4,
assign.
some Battleship.
Oh, Battleship was intense
Yeah, it
last week.
was. Yeah.
It was intense. Kiana sunk all my ships. And I was
Well,
like,
what
"Oh."
would you say to a student that says, man, I'm not really good with kids, or I'm, just sitting down with a strange kid, hey kid, my name's John, what's up? How have you been able to push through that initial awkwardness?
I don't know. I just kind of ask her how her day's going, and she's always like, oh, my day was good, and this happened, and this happened. This boy, he was sitting right there, and then he sat down here, and he sat down here, and I was boy trapped. And she'll just talk about all these things, and she's just the cutest little thing in the world. And honestly, you can say anything to a kid, and they'll just talk your ear off, and it's the greatest conversation that you'll ever have. And they're so honest too. So really, if you're interested in doing Kids Hope, which you should be because it's so great, just talk to them and show them that you love them, because they may not have someone who cares that much about them at home.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, just an hour a week, that can make a big difference. It's not much of a sacrifice on our part, an hour a week, but it could make a huge difference on their end, on their side. So if you're interested in that, talk to Kelly. She has all the information.
yeah, I got all the information. I'll give you Jennifer's number and email, and you can talk to Jennifer. She has more information than
If you're a
me.
mentor, raise your hand, a Kids Help mentor. I know we have some others in here. Right. Yeah, Dalton, he mentors little guy. What's your little guy's name? Jesse, yeah. And so we mentor on Wednesdays together as well. So Thanks, Kelly. As a freshman stepping out, I'm proud of Kelly for making a difference and not just waiting, but saying, hey, I want to make a difference. Well, why wait, right? Jump in. Going from Jerusalem, Judea, kind of stepping out one further step. Chris, why don't you come on up, and we have an opportunity. Mission is Wow, man, look at this. You're doing autographs after Paradise tonight. Mission is a lifestyle, not a trip, but trips are a part of the lifestyle, right? And so we provide those opportunities as a ministry. Over spring break, we do different things. In the summer, we might do something over the Christmas break, but specifically Beach Reach, which is coming up in March over spring break. Taking a group down to South Padre, we're going to give van rides, we're going to, serve midnight pancakes and just trying to demonstrate the love of Christ to people. And our church has provided some significant resources to help you go, right? So money is not going to be the reason why you don't go. And so I asked Chris to come up and just share with us his experience. Before you went on the trip, what'd you think about it, the apprehensions that you had, maybe the anxiety and fear that you had, and then having experienced it and come out the other side, what God showed you through it?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tell you, I'm kind of a hardcore introvert, and so before my first time going to Beach Reach, it was nerve-wracking, to say the least. I was super nervous, had a hard time sleeping even. I had like sweaty palms in class, like, how in the world am I going to walk up to somebody, who's out there partying and strike up a conversation about Christ? Like, I have no idea how that's ever going to happen. So going up to it, it was really, really tough. I'm not going to lie. And throughout the trip, it was really cool to seeing God, pull me further and further outside of my comfort zone. And I really think that once we're outside of our comfort zone, we can see God do some incredible things. And he definitely did some really cool things in me. And I've been 3 times already. This year will be my 4th time to go. I'm kind of addicted.
He's actually driving a van this year.
I'll be driving a van, yeah. But I want to share a quick story. I know what it's like. Maybe some of you are thinking about going, and so I want to share with you a little bit of encouragement. John doesn't know this, so I'm going to tell this story kind of to him and y'all. But Tuesday, I work on campus, and I was with a colleague. We were doing some research, and I see that John called, and it really wasn't the appropriate time to pick up, so I kind of let it go to voicemail. And about 10 minutes later, I listened to the voicemail, and it pretty much said, "Hey, I want you to come up on stage and talk about Beach Reach." And I got to tell you, Tuesday was a rough day. And so as soon as I got done listening to that voicemail, I was like, no, I will not do that. Absolutely not. I can give you about 50 reasons why right off the bat.
I feel like I should apologize.
No,
I didn't know this. Like, dude.
It gets better, I promise.
I was sitting at Cane's when I called eating chicken, and I didn't know that was a...
I was wondering what that background noise is.
Yes.
People talking, it was weird. But, I went home, and, I just kind of sat there, and I sat down on my computer, and I started writing an email. And on this email, I spent about 45 minutes typing up all the reasons why I should not be up here on stage talking to all of you. One of the reasons why is I have, stage fright. I don't know if you can tell that or not. I'm an introvert. I don't tend to be an effective communicator in front of large crowds. This list goes on. And right up before I was about to send it, I just had this feeling like come about me. I don't think this is the right decision. And so I sat there and I said, God, what? I don't want to do that. It's so far outside of my comfort zone. And then, before I knew it, I started thinking about all these stories in the Bible, of God using these very small, seemingly unqualified people to do some really big things. David and Goliath. Just the fact that he entrusted the gospel to, the disciples that he did. Just ordinary men, uneducated, is really kind of incredible. And so, what that told me was, God. His calling is not based upon our qualifications. He's able to use anybody. He fed the 5,000. He took the very little food that was offered to him and he multiplied it. And I think that he can do that. We, as humans, we don't have a lot to offer, but he can take what we do have to offer and he can make it go well beyond what we could ever imagine. And so I just want to encourage y'all, if you are in a place where you feel like, I don't want to go on Beach Reach. I don't have what it takes to talk to students about Christ, when they're partying, they're drunk. Well, I want to be here. I want to tell you that you do. God can use you, and I don't want you to walk away thinking that God is not able to do that, because that's severely not true.
Well, thanks, Chris. Man, that was a good challenge. I particularly asked Chris. When I first heard, we went to Gloria together on a road trip back in August, and when I first heard his story, I wanted him to share with you months and months ago, because Chris is such a solid, effective Christian, but he's not like Kirk Cameron type Christian. Very few of us are. Like, they don't even know who Kirk Cameron is.
Fireproof, anybody?
Ray Comfort, anybody? Okay, thank you. There's 3. Anyhow, but he went on Beach Reach as an introvert, and God used it in his life, and God used him. And so I don't want to, I mean, some people think Beach Reach, man, I'm not like that extrovert kind of out there, but I wanted Chris to encourage you. He's going again. This will be your fourth trip, man.
Trip.
Driving the van, one of our leaders. So just be encouraged by that. So, and if you want to talk to Chris, I mean, afterwards, if you have any personal questions about what Beach Reach is or how that looks, I'm sure you'd be open to talking to him. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, man. I could tell he was drawing strength from your beard, man. I could tell that. So Beach Reach, you only have a certain number of spring breaks to invest, and then they're gone, right? You can work the rest of your life, hopefully. If you have to work, I understand that, but if you don't have to, don't choose to. Because when you're in college, there's some opportunities that are available to you like Beach Reach that probably won't be available to you after you graduate. Candace has the forms, right? Candace is down here. If you want we will help you go. Like if money will not be the reason why you don't go on Beach Reach. Our church has graciously freed up a lot of mission money to help students go on this trip. So, all right. Well, from Jerusalem, Judea to Samaria, there's opportunities all over the place. And so Grace, where's Grace at? Grace, come on up. I was talking with Grace. She's another freshman. And just how God has used her to go other places, into other cultures, kind of crossing borders. Lots of opportunities. And I just asked her to share about kind of how that all happened. How those opportunities open up to you and, where you come from and how God has led you to a place where you just got back from Mexico, like over semester break.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Grace from El Paso. And I really grew up in a church that was really, they just encouraged everybody to try out missions. And so I grew up going on mission trips in high school every spring break, every summer. I was always going on a mission trip. And that's really where God first gave me a heart for other countries. So when I was getting ready to graduate high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't want to go to college and just go to college for the heck of it, So I knew I really wanted to do missions. And so there's an organization called Youth with a Mission, and it's called YWAM, and they do a 6-month missionary training school. And you can pretty much pick any country in the world that you want to go to, from Australia to China to Europe. And I picked Mexico. I've always had a heart for the Mexico culture, the language, the people, just everything about it. And so I picked there, and I gave up my first year after high school and spent 6 months in Mexico doing training, doing a bunch of different ministry opportunities. That is actually the view from my rooftop where I lived for 6 months. So I was really blessed I got to be in Beach City. And so this is, okay, don't get grossed out, but like...
Is that a puppy?
No. So like he was talking about how when you go to another country, it's not about us trying to Americanize them. It's not about us trying to say, well, this is our culture, let's change you because you guys are wrong. It's not about that. It's about you going in head first and saying, you know what, I'm just going to embrace your culture and I'm going to speak your language, I'm going to eat your food. This happens to be something that I ate my first day in Mexico. I got there, and this was what was for dinner. I don't know if you guys have any ideas, but it's a guinea pig. And yeah, so that was my first meal in Mexico.
Tasty.
But you can't say no because it's rude, so you just kind of say, oh, thanks a lot, This is one quick story I wanted to share with you guys. This was one of our ministry days, and they told us, okay, we're going to go and do ministry in the city dump. And I'm like, what? The dump? Like, no, how can we do ministry there? That's where all the trash is. How can we do ministry? But it turns out that there's a whole community there. In the States, that's not possible. But in Mexico, they live there, and there's kids and families and people. There's a whole community there. And so that was just one of my favorite ministry days, is going in and seeing that there's a whole community there. And so what I really wanted to challenge you guys was just to find what you're passionate about and use that in missions. Whether it's, if you're an education major and you love working with kids, you can go to an indigenous tribe in the middle of nowhere and teach kids how to read. If you want to go on an adventure, you can go, we went to the jungles in Panama, to places where people had never even heard of who Jesus was. They didn't know who, they're like, what, Jesus, who is that, you know? So we got to share with them for the first time the gospel. Well, if you like engineering, if you like construction, you can go and build houses for families that otherwise are living in cardboard shacks. So I would just really encourage you guys to find whatever the Lord has gifted you with, whether it's, you know, for me, I want to do medical missions, and that's where my heart is. But if you like education, if you're agriculture, whatever your major is or whatever you're passionate about, to use that for missions, because God really, he doesn't just call people to, you know, full-time missions, that he calls everybody, and you have a gift. And that was just a cool quote I found that I thought kind of sums it all up. But there's opportunities everywhere. Like John was saying, that in college, it's the perfect time. We have semester breaks, we have spring break and summer, and I just challenge you to use those to go on a mission somewhere. You know, whether if you feel like you want to leave the country, then do it. I spent 2 weeks of my Christmas break in Tijuana, Mexico, building houses and working with orphanages. And so yeah, and that's just kind of my heart behind it, is that college is the perfect time to get involved. And there's opportunities everywhere, whatever your gifts are. I just really challenge you to use them.
Thanks, Grace. And she's right. I mean, if you want specific information about Youth with a Mission, Grace has some connections. She can hook you up. But there's so many good organizations to go on mission with. And I wanted you to see students, right, they're pulling all-nighters, right? They're throwing back the Red Bulls and the Monsters, trying to, do these marathon study sessions, trying to meet deadlines. And they're these are students just like you that are struggling with relationships and with finances and with family and with stuff, right? But yet in the middle of that, God's using them. The same way he can use you. It really takes away our excuses. And college is the best time to be on mission. If you're not on mission in college, it's going to be really difficult to be on mission after you graduate. There's very few other places where you have thousands upon thousands of other people that are thrown into the same place in a very influential time in their life, right? I mean, you got 30,000 people at Texas Tech that are all around you all the time. And it's also a place that creates some unique opportunities, like what Grace was describing, to go on these trips, like Beach Reach, or there's a booth set up in the back. Steven's back there. He'd love to talk to you about some opportunities. I'm telling you, it's never been easier to be on mission. To have ministry leaders that are like cheerleaders that are encouraging you. Go, guys, you can do it. And we're, trying to resource you and trying to do everything we can to facilitate you making a difference in the world. There's never been as many organizations that are out there that will pave the road. Like Go Now Missions is one of them. That there's a whole book of opportunities. Right? If you want resort ministry, if you want agricultural ministry, if you want whatever, right? It's out there, right? And so I really encourage you to take the opportunities while you have them. Let me close out with this. Rhett, you guys come on back up, man. I'm gonna invite you guys to respond by saying yes. Saying yes. It's not if God is asking you, it's where is he asking you to go. Every Christian is a missionary. Every Christian is sent somewhere. So you're sent into a sorority, not to be a Bible thumper, but to be a Jesus person, right? To live a captivating life where others around you will see something different, right? And they'll say, what is up? I mean, why are you different? And you'll be able to respond because you've demonstrated the love of Christ. Now you can declare it, right? With gentleness and respect. You're sent into a fraternity. You're sent into a degree program. You're sent into a campus. And some of you are sent across an ocean, right? And so the question is not if you will go. But where? Where is it that God is asking you to go? And I'd love to talk with you. Stephen would love to talk to you and help you process that. Jesus said one time, he went through all the towns and villages, and he saw the people. They were harassed and they were helpless. And those words are really hard to translate. They were wounded and discouraged. They were weighed down. They were stressed out. That's another possible translation. Like sheep without a shepherd. And he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask God to send out workers into the field. So that's what I challenge you to do in these next few minutes. The invitation is to say yes. Yes to God. To ask God, God, where do you want me to go? Where do you want me to go? On my campus, in my community. And then be intentional, right? God, open our eyes. Help us to see the people that you place around us. God, help us to step out in faith and trust you, to put ourselves in a position where we need him, where we don't have the resources, we don't have the skill set. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. I don't know how my family's going to respond to it. I don't know if I can do it. But yet, like Chris, like these others, you step out and you experience God in a way that 1,000 sermons can't equal. Your faith will be built when you step out in faith in a way that it'll never be built in a sanctuary. So would you stand up? Lord, we give you this time. We thank you, God, that you use broken people like me. That we don't have to get our life right before we're usable. And so right here, right now, as best as we know how, we say yes. Yes to wherever you want to send us, wherever you want to take us. We say to you, here am I, send me. I want to ask the leaders if they would to kind of go to the back. And if you want to talk with someone, to pray with someone, some of our student leaders will be in the back to talk with you, to pray with you. And I'll be back there. Stephen will be back there. But these next few minutes, man, I really want you to consider what God has for you.